Something amazing happened to me recently, and I use the word amazing in the sense of causing great wonder, astonishing, something awe-inspiring. Would you like to hear the story? It's about long-lost relatives, the marvel of social media, the love of family, the hand of God, all with a happy ending. It's a good story. I'll start with a little bit of background. The story begins in 1921 when my grandmother, Silvia Ambrogi, left Italy to come to America. She was only 9 years old. When I was growing up, I visited her every summer on Long Island. Family was very important to her, and she made sure that my sister and I knew our Italian relatives. Although I grew up with my cousins, we eventually drifted apart. I would see them occasionally at significant family events, such as my grandmother's. We called her Nana. So I saw them at Nana's 90th birthday. I saw them at my father's funeral. I saw them at her funeral. We would be there and we would share how meaningful it would be to visit her hometown of Gubbio. Yeah, it was a fun thought, but we never made it happen until my cousin Diane invited me on a trip to the Amalfi Coast of Italy. Due to COVID, the trip was delayed several times, but finally in 2022, Diane, her childhood friend, and I flew from Newark, New Jersey to Naples, Italy. Here was my grandmother's wish of having her family staying together, staying in touch. It was coming true. I found I loved Italy and couldn't wait to go back, but in 2023, Diane's and my travel plans did not coincide. I ended up traveling to Italy in the fall with a small group of women led by Susan Van Allen. Susan wrote a book, 100 Places Every Woman Should Visit in Italy. For me, it was an impromptu and last-minute vacation after my summer travel plans were canceled. The trip was to be 9 days in the Umbria region of Italy with a one-day excursion to Gubbio. And when I saw that in the itinerary, I felt that it was a sign from God that I had His blessing to enjoy this European adventure. Little did I know what would happen after that. How wonderful that I could go to the birthplace of my grandparents, both of them, Nana and Nono. With only a few weeks of preparation, I Googled the small medieval town looking for a way to find my family. I checked Facebook, there was nothing. I'm trying to find my relatives. I called Diane to see if she had any information about our Italian relatives. The only contact that she knew of was in 1975 when Aunt Mabel, her mother, took her to see the family. 1975. I contacted my cousin Irene to see if she knew of more recent encounters. She had an address and a photo from 1971. That was it. There was no contact since the 1970s. I couldn't believe it. That's almost 50 years. I became determined to at least locate the house of the address that she had. And Google mapping showed that the address was just an average looking apartment built like in the last 50 years. But if I could just find the house and knock on the door, I knew I would die happy. I had very low expectations. After all, people spend years and years and dollars, many dollars searching for loved ones. All I had to go on was a photo that my cousin Irene sent of her father and mother, and we believe that was a relative, from 1971. I had a few documents like birth certificates. I had a picture of the ship that my grandmother came over on and an address. And as it turns out, that address, it was not even the correct address. They moved in the 70s. So I have an address from 1971. I have a photo. We don't even know who's in the photo. And my grandmother's name. That's all I had to go on. And I found the family. Remember that photo, okay? I emailed Susan Van Allen on September 24th, asking her to please arrange an Italian guide who could assist me in just finding the house and who could translate to whoever would open the door. As we all know, timing is everything. And the timing on this, unfortunately, there were no guides available. My day in Gubbio coincided with the annual feast day of St. Francis of Assisi, the patron saint of Italy, just a short distance away. Everyone was busy. However, I was not deterred. I was disappointed, but not deterred. I was determined. Susan worked behind the scenes to find someone who could assist me in my quest. She contacted an American Facebook friend who lived in both the US and Gubbio. They had corresponded for several years but had never met in person. Mary Catherine was happy to help me, this Italian American looking for her family. She asked her friend Nadia, originally from South Africa, now living in Gubbio, to act as my guide and translator. This is where it got really interesting. Nadia works for the largest food distributor in this town, and she told her boss about me. I had forwarded the one photo, the address, and my grandmother's name, so they had only basic information. After making a few calls, he figured out who the family might be, called one of his grocery stores to inquire, and of all things, the woman he was looking for, Carolina, was shopping at the exact time of his call. Timing is everything. He told her that her American family was looking for her, but she had no family in America. However, she recognized the name Ambrogi. Turned out that her husband, Ardicino, and my grandmother were cousins. And this all happened the very same day that I arrived in Gubbio on October 4th. So after 10 days, we had found my family. I learned upon arrival in Gubbio that Mary Catherine and Nadia had not only located my relatives, but had arranged for us to meet later in the day. It began to feel surreal. In a matter of days, two complete strangers had located my relatives and were going to translate for us. It was unbelievable. This felt like a movie happening in real life. And Susan and I were all just tingling with excitement. We couldn't imagine how this all came together. So the anticipation was growing and growing, and we were excited when we arrived at their new address. They had moved a short distance away back in the 1970s. There was quite a flutter of activity when the woman came outside to greet us. She was speaking in Italian.
La nonna Silvia? Sì. Allora aspetta, se la nonna è Silvia, vuol dire che lei è la figlia di Roberto.
Nadia was translating to me, and my mind just went into overload. She was asking me questions that were so unfamiliar to me that I feared that this might be the wrong family, and things were going to get very awkward very quickly. And I whispered to Mary Catherine my concern. I told her, I didn't think it was the right family, and I told her, but if it turned out to be the wrong family, she shouldn't tell me. Let me go on with this idea that they're my family. And once I entered their beautiful home, I spied a photo of my grandparents on their dining room table. Oh my God, these were my people. I couldn't believe it. After 50 years with no communication, I had discovered my Italian family. I was overjoyed. I'm lost for words. They cannot express the joy that all of us felt and the amazement of this unusual sequence of events. It became clear to each of us that it had to have been God. It had to have been God's hand involved in bringing us together. As it turned out, my grandparents, Silvia and Tony, were also there in 1971 at the baptism of her cousin's baby, Roberto. Seeing more photos of them completely blew me away. It turned out that the 90-year-old man next to me was the same young man in the photo from 1971. And he had that same photo on his table, and there were so many more coincidences that we thought God had definitely brought us together. It was not my human determination, but it was God. Isn't that a great story? Ciao.